story you tell everyone. There's a place to share a laugh about when things went wrong, and a place to share the video of you dancing to your song. There's a place to share spare change, lunch, and your time. But we could all be better at sharing how we're feeling inside. 76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Soul Food Lunch Buffet. We've got a nice round of stuff on the menu. We've got a president that has COVID-19. We've had the first African-American woman to be in the vice presidential debate, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Intellectual Soul Food Lunch Buffet. I am the sous chef, Doc Rob. We hope you're doing well. We are 7 weeks into our academic semester, 7 weeks, day 2. And joining us in the sous chef kitchen with us, we've got Zaria Johnson, Brittany Cohen, Brandon Blizzard, Chuck Manning, and Joycelyn Hurd. I hope you're all doing well. Zaria is going to co-host with us. Isn't that right, Zaria?
Yes, it is.
Tell us about yourself.
My name is Zaria Johnson. I'm a senior at NCCU, majoring in mass communications. And like Dr. Robinson said, I will be your co-host today.
Okay, so why don't you tell us why don't you open up our first topic for us today?
So the basis of our show is about masculinity and femininity. One of the first topics that we want to get into is the representations of Black masculinity in media. And our panelist, Joycelyn Hurd, can go ahead and talk about that.
Joycelyn, your mic is muted. There you go.
Oh, I can't hear her. Sorry. It's really low.
No worries. Keep talking.
So basically, I wanted to cover the topic of Black masculinity. Most people see it as a man who's strong, a man who they usually get the characteristics of what masculinity is from people that they look up to, like people who have raised them. So I feel like masculinity, it refers to the attributes and behaviors, the different roles that they play that associate with men. So, yeah.
So when we think about the term Black masculinity, or is it just masculinity as a whole, how do we deal with this term masculinity? Let's start basically with this, because we talked about this last time. I want to ask the gentleman in the panel, what does it mean to be masculine? Let's start with you, Brandon.
I think masculinity is just described as how you take responsibility, how you carry yourself, how you look out for others, and just your overall how you express yourself as a man.
Chuck, what about you?
I feel that masculinity can be described, what to me in a way is a sense of leadership, of leading, and just having that dominance opposed to others, your other counterparts, just having a dominance, showing it in behaviors and the way you dress and the way you're physically built, as far as with adding to what Joyce.
Ladies, tell us, what do you think about those codings, if you will, of masculinity? How does that jive with your idea, your definitions, what you've been led to believe masculinity is? Zaria, start it with us.
I believe that in recent years, there's a very foggy definition of what masculinity is, because if you were to ask somebody maybe 10 years ago what masculinity is, it would be the man of the household, and you have to speak like this, and you have to dress like this, and men don't cry, and all of those factors play into masculinity. But I feel like now, like I said, it's a foggy definition, so I don't know if I can truly define what it is, because I feel like in some aspects, and not in a bad way, but women can be masculine too. So I don't know if I can really find a true definition of what masculinity is.
Other ladies?
I agree with Zaria. I believe that the definition of what masculinity is today is really not as concrete as it used to be, because like she said, a lot of women can be masculine, and the definitions that some of the men pose was men particularly being the head of the household. They are the person that's the provider, the leader, the protector. But in a lot of cases, the women have been assuming those roles that were traditionally, I wouldn't say forced on men, but established for men.
Okay. Zara, you have the next question. Unmute yourself.
That would be much better. So our next question, did you want me to go right into the next topic or still stay on this topic?
You're the co-host. You tell me what you think. I'm going to play off of you today. Play off of your actions today.
All right. So I think I want to still stick to masculinity, and I want to bring this to the men in the room. So again, on this topic, I think Chuck, you had mentioned it with dressing and stuff like that. What is masculine clothes? Like, is it masculine for a woman to like wear a pantsuit? Or you understand what I'm saying? Like, what defines masculinity in clothing?
I definitely, I wouldn't describe a woman wearing as more business with her preference. I think masculine clothes would be more so. How can I put it?
English, it works best for all of us.
Sir, you're absolutely right. I'm trying to collect my thoughts together. I would say clothing that that kind of shows off physical features or in certain parts that may be I don't know, that may be more like, there may be something that so something like maybe like a body part or a certain way you look at it. Like that's
Chuck, you're fading out. Brandon, what about you?
Honestly speaking, I don't think that there is a type of clothing that necessarily defines masculinity, like for a man.
Now that's go into some detail with that.
Yeah.
I mean, like as far as like it's not like a specific brand or like a specific type of like because like I
So would
regularly
you see a man in a jumper?
like a Cam Newton didn't Cam Newton wear like a jumper, a romper, like but you're not gonna tell Cam Newton he's not masculine. You feel me? So it's like I guess it really just depends on how you look at it and how the man who is wearing it is carrying himself.
Okay.
So I kind of do understand what you're saying because it depends. To me, this is my opinion. It depends on how the man wears what he wears that defines it maybe as masculine. I don't know if Brittany or Jocelyn, you feel the same way. It's about how you carry yourself, not exactly the garments that you wear.
I agree. In terms of like Cam Newton's style, I don't follow sports, but I would recognize Cam Newton based on his style and the way that people talk about him. And some people say his style is feminine, but really, I feel like it's just the way he presents himself that makes him masculine. Because I've seen men wear rompers, I've seen them wear the Uggs that are necessarily designed for women, and I feel like it's just all dependent on how that person presents themselves and how they, I would say, categorize themselves as being quote unquote masculine.
Interesting.
And kind of piggyback on top of what Brittany and Zari have said, I feel like the spectrum of what masculinity is, I feel like it's not so much of, it's becoming a thing of not so much what you wear, but how Chuck and Brandon have said, it's more about how you represent yourself, how you, I feel like the guidelines of what is seen as masculine has definitely been stretched. I've seen men wear the purses and things like that. So I definitely agree with what y'all are saying.
So the question I'm gonna have with this then comes back to performance. How do you perform masculinity? How are we performing masculinity? And on top of that, I will even add an extra layer to this. Can you perform Black masculinity? What does that mean? Anybody?
I think Black masculinity is the way that I feel like if Black men carry themselves a little bit different than people of other races would, in my opinion. I feel like like men as a whole, like Black men, I feel like they hold like a lot of strength. Like when you see them, most look very confident, most look comfortable in their skin. So I definitely feel like we kind of have to, as Black people in general, have to make ourselves look a little bit more. I can't really explain it, but it's like the way that we carry ourselves. It kind of ties into that.
Someone else? The question that we have on the table comes to us, says, what is Black masculinity? Someone define that for us. What is Black masculinity? Can you define it? Can we define Black masculinity? That's the question.
I don't know if you can.
Sure you can. Try it.
I don't know. I guess Black masculinity would have, I don't know. I mean, basic head of the household, strong man persona and stuff, but does that also fall into maybe the question of toxic masculinity? I don't know. So.
Well, before we go into toxic, I want to know, can we get a grasp on wrestle with the term. What is Black masculinity?
Well, the simple term, I would say, what is masculinity within Black men, or even Black women, honestly, because like I was saying earlier, a lot of Black women have assumed the roles of what will be deemed as being Black men, like they're the head of the household, they take care of the bills. They basically take care of every aspect of the family unit. And that was something that was traditionally assumed by men. And the lines are being blurred, especially in today's society with more representation in TV, even music. And I feel like the term Black masculinity is so broad, but it can be concrete in a way, especially if you're looking more so within the race itself, as opposed to comparing it to other races. Because like Zaria was saying, a lot of other races, they might not present the same way as a Black man would, or as a Black woman would, in terms of masculinity, in terms of strength, in terms of confidence. So I feel like the definition can be very broad.
Very good. So let's go back to this term that was mentioned, toxic masculinity, because people are using this more regularly now in our daily nomenclature, if you will, our lexicon. We want to have a term, toxic masculinity. What exactly is toxic masculinity? Why do you think toxic masculinity has gotten so much attention, certainly in the past 4 years?
I think that it's gotten so much attention because of who we have in office. And like I think that, not that it started, but it was sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back when the audio recording came out with Donald Trump saying, "I'm gonna grab her by the," etc. I think that it showed like men will really sort of stick up for other men, or this is how a man is supposed to act. And it's been allowed for numbers and numbers and numbers of years, when it's not, it shouldn't be normal. And it's actually very toxic to society for people, and especially men, to think that things like that are okay. It's not just how a man should act, it's actually toxic.
So Chelsea comes to us and she says, do y'all think there's such thing as white masculinity? It's a good question. Is there such thing as white masculinity? Wow. Crickets on that one. There are a few crickets there. That's okay. Oh, Chuck. Welcome to the party, Chuck.
White masculinity. Just thinking about how America was built upon, just white people being in favor of power, and how they structured the way that we live. I guess you could term and make a case for white masculinity, because that's how it is perceived, that the woman comes second behind the man, and the man does everything outside, has the power, while the woman is at home taking care of all this other necessities. But really, it's not just, it's why I say you can make a case because that, but why you couldn't is because masculinity is talking about men as a whole. Like, I don't think it really plays on the race so much, but just more so the action behaviors of men as a whole.
So we're going to pivot, because I think this is a great opportunity. As we talk about white masculinity, I think it's a great opportunity for us to, again, jump into the person we call the president, which is Donald Trump. And he had an interesting debate performance a couple of weeks ago. And now we're looking in comparison to the debate performance of Kamala Harris, who went up against, excuse me, Vice President Mike Pence. Did you all get a chance to see the debate last night?
Yes.
I did.
Talk to me about it.
It was really good.
Talk to me about it.
So basically,
go ahead.
Is Zari going?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So basically, during the debate, I feel as though they made some really great points, but what was very obvious was Vice President Pence interrupted Senator Harris a lot. That was what stuck out a lot. After they did a lot of the news, like I guess you could say like reporters, they were speaking a lot on how basically Vice President Pence was just kind of being really rude during the debate. Kamala definitely represented herself very well. She was very professional, and I feel like she definitely got her point across.
Others.
So I watched the debate last night also. It actually felt normal. Like I wasn't
normal.
Yeah, it felt normal.
Even the fly felt normal.
Yeah. Compared to even to last week's debate. Last week's debate was just, I think, I forgot, one of the reporters on CNN, he said it was a hot mess. Just exactly what it was. But last night's debate, even though Pence had his moments of interrupting and stuff like that, I don't think I would expect anything less from that for a debate. He wasn't as belligerent as President Trump, but it was much more poised than last week's debate. So
right. We have a comment that just came in from Latanya Blizzard. I don't think masculinity is color-coded. I do think it's taught differently in different communities. I thank you for the comment. So I guess the question I would have here with this is, I want to go back to the debate. I think it was Joyce. You mentioned earlier that everything that not Donald, but Pence interrupted her consistently throughout the entire process. And now as she was interrupted, according to what we saw, a Fox News reporter or analyst stated that undecided voters now believe that Harris, she is being viewed, and I'll check the words on it, but she's being viewed through a very negative lens. I'll have to double check that. I'll swim and find it for you. But I think the key is that they were expecting her to be submissive and to back down, bow down. What do you all think about that? I'll find the quote for you.
I would definitely expect the media as a whole to, demonize Kamala Harris significantly, because she is a Black woman and she is in a position of power, and she has a potential of being in a greater position of power by being alongside a potential candidate to be the president of the United States. So I would expect the media to condemn her and try to make it seem like she is a part of the rhetoric of the angry Black woman or the Black woman with an attitude. I know on Twitter, a lot of people were making memes already about the facial expressions that she was making and associating it with the Black mama look and things of that nature. And it really goes into perspective of how the country actually views Black women, even if they train for months to be on a debate where millions and millions of people are seeing them, and they still get some sort of derogatory term attached to their name. And I think that's something that plays into how patriarchy views women as a whole, and especially Black women.
Right. If you take a look here, we actually have a clip that comes in and it talks to us about this piece where we have the folks at Fox News. They have viewed her and they have basically stated in a nutshell, and I'm going to see if I can pull it up for us all, that undecided voters have found Harris abrasive, condescending, and vice presidential debate. That comes from Frank Luntz. Yes, who'd like to speak on that?
I would. I think that whether either one of those candidates would have said, I'm assuming that they're talking about when she said, I'm speaking. If he would have done that to her, they would have said that it was condescending too. So I don't understand why they're trying to be like, oh, he was the winner and stuff like that. I also think that they were calling her condescending or abrasive and stuff like that because she actually spoke up for herself, and that people think that we as Black women or just women in general are supposed to be submissive, like, oh, okay, just let him interrupt, okay, and not supposed to say anything. So I feel like that's a sort of, I guess, maybe toxic masculinity just showing himself, like, we can't speak up for ourselves. We can't say, I'm speaking, respect my time. But now we're kind of abrasive.
Oh, that kind of falls into my father was watching a movie the other day. I think it's called The Glorious. And it was a quote she mentioned that said, masculinity in this world refers to what means leading, while femininity is following. So just what you said as far as with her thinking, she's supposed to just let him do as he pleases. I think it falls back into that and into the same as that toxic masculinity trait that we're seeing. So.
Well, that kind of takes us back into another piece then when we think about this issue with Donald Trump and the Proud Boys. Again, for those who are not familiar, Donald Trump, roughly 2 weeks ago in his presidential debate, talked about how he didn't know who the Proud Boys were. He basically said, stand back and stand by to the Proud Boys, and a lot of people felt that there was a challenge. So when we think about that notion with his power as the ultimate bully pulpit, talk to me then about this other piece of toxic masculinity. Do you think then that his actions, his inability to just directly come out against it, against a hate group, do you think that actually plays into toxic masculinity, or as one person put out, white dominance?
I don't think that plays into toxic masculinity. I think that plays into more, like you said, white dominance, more so a racial issue, because that's more so like how could you have, you're the president, you have the power to denote anything or anybody, but you couldn't to a hate group. So I think that really plays more so on white dominance, just probably things that he's been raised into and things that he views as or doesn't see wrong within it.
Very good. Well, folks, when we get back, we're going to come back after this quick break. But when we get back, we're going to be talking about women in athletics, talking about transgendered women specifically, and other issues of importance in the news. We'll see you back in roughly 30 seconds.
Prescription drug pricing points to corporate
Freedom of the press is about your right to know. It's about your right to be informed. Today, there are real threats to press freedom and your right to know about the world around us. We must protect our right to know, no matter what kind of news is important to you. Before it's too late, understand the threats. ProtectPressFreedom.org.
Zaria, take us to our next conversational piece in our menu for the day.
So, like you spoke about before we went on break, we're going to get into gender issues, things that have to do with transgender issues. I believe that it was Brittany that talked about gender issues in athletics. So you can go ahead and take that.
Yes. So recently, Serena Williams, she had a injury to her Achilles, and she had to drop out of the French Open. And this raised a lot of questions and issues surrounding her age and her being a woman in athletics in general, because a lot of people on social media, as soon as she announced that she was hurt and that she had this injury and she was not able to perform her athletic duties, they immediately went to, oh, she should retire. Oh, she's had enough accolades and things of that nature. But they would not have that same treatment, wouldn't be directed towards men, because there are tons of athletes who are over the age of 35 who are still playing, who are still getting the same respect that male athletes have gotten in the past. But unfortunately, women athletes, they don't get the same treatment. They, as soon as something is wrong, especially Black women, not Black women, but women athletes who become pregnant, they're immediately deemed as, oh, they're not able to perform to the best of their abilities. They're not able to compete. So the issue of gender and ageism and sports in general, it's something that needs to be discussed. It's something that can potentially hurt somebody's career.
Okay, so let's have the conversation. Tell us how it could hurt someone's career.
Well, in terms of hurting their career, I feel like it can hurt how people perceive them. In terms of Serena Williams, her being a successful Black woman in sports, it's something that she gets more, I wouldn't say screen time, but she has more notoriety than me. In her position, her high position in sports right now, is not the same for a lot of people. And she ultimately is a target in a lot of cases because of how successful she is, of how poised she is. And that's something that a lot of people fear. And I feel like her being in such a high position within the sports totem pole, if you will, all eyes are on her. But really, the eyes should be on other people who are doing things that aren't, satisfactory in the world of sports.
So we're looking at a piece that comes to us from RT, and they mentioned this piece on white privilege. Serena Williams says she's been underpaid, undervalued, and this actually goes back into the notion of, again, as you've mentioned, she is now having to withdraw from I believe it is the French Open. It might be the U.S. Open. I don't know. I have to double check. But again,
it's the French Open.
It's the French. Thank you. So it's the French Open. Do you feel? And I think we have a quote. Let's see. Don't know. I'll have to double check. I guess the question is are we looking at a clear-cut double standard in this whole piece, especially around the line of women's sports?
Absolutely. I think.
Who are we looking at the double standard? Are we looking at basically, even as the piece talked about, white privilege in women's sports? Explain.
I think so. I think sports masculinity, I think, is constructed within sports and it's reinforced within sports because you have the roughhousing, the violence, and the idea of meritocracy. I think I'm pronouncing that right, where you're chosen based on your abilities. And when we look at hegemonic masculinity, if you're straight, white, middle-class male, you get certain privileges that other people don't get. And I think that sort of trickles over into sports. So, yeah.
Someone else. Sorry.
I think this also ties into our last conversation about toxic masculinity and the difference between the two. When speaking about Serena, and she speaks about how she feels like she's underpaid and not valued, and Brittany spoke about she's always attacked and things like that. I think that also plays into the fact that Serena is not 5'2" and petite, and that she's a full-fledged woman. And because she doesn't have like skinny arms or anything like that, people come for her and try to label her as masculine because I feel like they're threatened. And I think that plays a part into why she feels like she's underpaid and undervalued as well.
Do we think, though, to something, I love the point that you make that she does not fit into the ideal as folks have tried to ascribe. When we think of the tennis player, the female tennis player in particular, what are we looking at, or who do we see visually? Who are some of the names that come to your mind who are not Venus or Serena?
I don't have any.
Me either.
Other than Naomi Osaka, because we talked about her the other week, I think.
Naomi Osaka, but there were some others. I mean, traditionally you had Martina Navratilova. She's even kind of like before my time. But as you got into it, you start seeing people like the Steffi Graf. So it was really like a rich white girl sport, or you had to be connected to get inside of this particular sport. Maria Sharapova, she was another one. In fact, she was the one that was screaming every time she hit the ball. And as you began to see this constantly over and over again, I think you then saw the changing face of tennis, in women's tennis at least. It changed dramatically when the Williams sisters came on board. And then the thing that we also noticed is that they didn't get as much advertisement or advertising dollars that they would usually get. But they were consistent at winning championships. So I want to pivot now. I'm going to talk to you, Dallas. Dallas, you got a story for us about transgender. What's going on with that?
Okay, so 3 transgender women of color were attacked in California. They were attacked and robbed in California. And one of the victims, Jasmine Boussinet, she was hit over the head with a glass bottle. And she said that instead of helping, people that were standing by just mocked the 3 of them and reported. And she's claimed that it's a hate crime because she's her and her friends are transgender women.
Okay, and here is a piece of that. If we can take a look at it, if I can get it up. And pardon the dogs that we've got. But yes, that's the piece. LA officials blast the callous bystander who filmed the attack on the bystanders. Again, folks, we're in COVID-19, so I'm doing this from home. That's why you might hear the dogs in the background. Let's talk about this. Let's unpack this.
I think that this sort of speaks to, I don't want to say heteronormativity. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But I think when we look at sex is like what your biological anatomy assigned at birth or before birth. But when we think about gender, it's a socially constructed idea. And when we talk about social construction, we mean that we have certain connotations or notions that are placed on certain people and things based on society standards. So if you ask me, there's no real definition to what a woman or a man, or what it needs to be feminine or masculine, because these are society's made up rules. And I think that's where we get non-conforming people. That's where we get transgender people, because they internally feel a certain way and they express themselves based on how they feel internally, and not necessarily conforming to society's notions and standards.
I'll go ahead and read the question. Do y'all think the laughing and violence stems from the fact that we have a society that has a history of having a gender binary society?
Yeah, I think so. Because like I was mentioning before, with the heteronormative ideas, it's that, okay, there's only 2 genders, that romantic relationship should only be between opposite genders and things like that. So I think it's sort of, I don't want to say institutionalized, but I want to say it's ingrained in the fabric of our society. And that's why we can look at things like this and not take them seriously, because we don't necessarily agree with people's lifestyles or the way that they choose to express themselves.
Yeah, it's been programmed in our head, and even in our laws that the country is basically built off of, to only understand man and woman, and only understand at birth you are either man or woman. So it just snowballs constantly over the years of trying to understand while being sort of like pushed back because of what we've been taught. Yeah.
You're muted.
Dr. Robinson, you're muted.
There we go. I was going to say, I think the other thing that we have to talk about too is the most recent Supreme Court nominee. I think that is something that we have to think about because this person, unfortunately, they are not a friend to the LGBTQ community. Let's take a look at that real quick. So this is the person who is getting the nod. Her name is, what is it? Barrett. And she already, she would stack the Supreme Court the way it is right now. So if you think about that and how she could possibly stack the court, the challenge would be that could be a serious assault on not just LGBTQ rights, but there could also be an assault on, we're not voting for Tom Tillis. It could be an assault too on, I would say,
women's
rights. Hell, the assault would be on rights for people who are marginalized. That could be a challenge, a very serious challenge. What do you all think about that?
I think it's honestly just a revolving door. Like if it's not one thing, it's another. It's just really disappointing. I guess it depends on who you speak to, but I wouldn't label myself as a progressive, but I do believe in some of the ideas. But for society that's always trying to accept people and be open and things like that, I feel like someone being appointed with those types of beliefs sort of puts the country back as far as loving one another and being a united front. If this presidency, if this the administration that's in now, we're America, we're the best nation in the world, we're one, we're a family and stuff like that. That's not showing it. Appointing somebody who is not a friend of the LGBT community, it is not a friend of women's rights, is very, very just non-inclusive. How much are we united? Are we really the United States of America? No.
All right. So when we come back after this break, we're going to go ahead and pivot. Zari's going to talk to us about some Emmy wins. She's also going to talk to us about Meg Thee Stallion on SNL and a whole bunch of other things. Stay tuned. We got a whole lot more coming for you in this round of the Intellectual Soul Food Lunch Buffet.
Your voice, your vote. In our democracy, they matter. Make yours count. Get registered, learn the issues, and vote by or on November 3rd. Visit vote411.org. This message is furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
We're back, and I'm going to take it now to Zaria. Zaria, tell us about what's going on in the world of entertainment.
So in the world of entertainment, big news for Zendaya. I grew up watching Zendaya on Shake It Up on Disney Channel, but she's progressed. She's no longer the Disney kid, and she is on HBO's Euphoria. Zendaya made history by being the youngest female, also African-American, to win in the leading actress category at the Emmys. And again, like, this made history, and it just shows the fact that women can make monumental strides, but it has taken a long time to do so, and it's kind of unfortunate, but we are happy about it. So yeah, it's just really, I guess, inspiring to see.
Very good. And we're now going to take it to another level because we had something happen very recently. Meg Thee Stallion. Meg Thee Stallion used her political voice. Someone break this down for us. Tell us what happened here. So,
Megan Thee Stallion, it's a huge backstory here. So her performance was about addressing two subjects. The first subject was the obvious unjustly murder of Breonna Taylor and the fact that she still has no justice, and also to the fact that women, especially Black women, are unprotected. This also related to her personal life because I want to say maybe about a month or two ago, Megan Thee Stallion was shot by Tory Lanez, and he still has not been brought to any sort of justice for that. So her performance was basically shining a light on how Black women should be protected, and it referenced Malcolm X's line of Black women are the most disrespected women in America. So she put her platform and what she believed in and what she's actually going through as a Black woman on center stage at SNL.
So I'm going to bring some of the fellas back in for this because I would like to hear what they have to say if they're available. Talk to us, ladies. Performance versus art, art versus performance, life imitating art, art imitating life. What are we looking at here? Brittany, we'll start with you.
I feel like in a way this is art imitating life because in today's society, with technology and its different advances, musicians have the more of a platform to voice their perspectives and views, especially in terms of Megan Thee Stallion, her performance. It directly relates to her life because she went through a traumatic experience and she did not get the justice that most people would think that she would receive since she is a popular artist. But she didn't. She still has to voice her opinions on social media, and people still demonize her for speaking out on something that happened to her, something that was traumatic. And I think that goes to show a lot of the instances that Black women go through in society as a whole. People don't believe us. People don't see us as being innocent. People demonize us and feel as though, we have to put on a facade. We have to put on the front that we're strong. But in actuality, we deserve the same respect and attention that our white counterparts get on any given day.
Now, some would argue politically, and those who are politically conservative, let me go ahead and qualify that in many cases that maybe not, we don't know, especially in matters of sexual assault on women. To some degree, do you think that because a woman may dress a certain way or carry themselves a certain way, and also even men, that in essence they may be saying that, hey, this is what I'm dressed for, this is what I would like to attract. Tell us does that have any traction? Does that have any cultural traction? Again, how would that play into, I guess, the notion of, again, toxic masculinity?
I think it contributes or sort of speaks to rape culture and a mix of rape culture and masculinity together, because I think when we think about masculinity, we sort of relate it to power and power over women specifically when we think about patriarchy and hegemonic masculinity. So I think that when we look at that with rape culture, there's this idea that, well, I personally think that rape is about power, trying to exercise your power as a man. It's not necessarily about what the woman is wearing or doing. I think it's about, like you said, toxic masculinity and trying to exercise this power that society has ascribed to men.
Okay, someone else. I mean, when you think about it, we go back, we just recently learned that locally in our local Senate race, that one of the candidates has now been forced to basically expose all of his sexual proclivities. His sexual indiscretions have now been exposed. Whereas in one regard, you also have someone who says something along the lines of, oh, well, grab her by the genitalia. And now this person is elected. We have a comment that comes from Mel Clemens. Want to read that for us? Mia Clemens.
It says, I feel like Black women are becoming more assertive and demanding respect. Megan is a perfect example of that. Protect Black women.
Very good. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Miss Clemens. We appreciate the comment. What do you all think? What do you say to that?
I agree. I think when we see things like feminism and certain social movements like that, it speaks to, like she said, women having more of a voice. Because I think this society in America in general obviously relates back to patriarchy. It was built for men to be the leaders, men to be the head of the household, the head of government, and that type of thing. So I think women are using their voices to sort of combat that. And I agree that that also relates to rape culture.
Zari.
Honestly, this topic is just, I don't know. I really just don't like it because it seems like it's never going to, we're never going to win. Like we always a problem. Like, for example, if Megan wears something that would be deemed, you know, I guess inappropriate or something like that, are you saying that she deserves the type of disrespect that comes with
I'm
her?
not saying that.
Not you. No.
Don't put that on me.
No. I'm just talking about society in general.
Right.
I feel like that's how a lot of people think. Like, oh, she's dressed like that. Why would she not do that? Or not even put it in those blatant terms, but I mean, she does dress like that. I mean, she does say this, etc., etc. Well, if somebody it's saying that I want respect, regardless of what I look like, it shouldn't matter. Like, just like in rape culture, just a no means no. Like, don't think that because I'm dressed like this, you get to be like, okay, I'm going to treat you like this. I'm going to do whatever I want because you don't deserve it, because you don't know how to put pants on. Like, no. Mm-mm.
Brittany, you've been kind of quiet on this topic.
I agree with Zaria. In a way, I feel like society is really becoming desensitized to what is going on.
Oh God, I removed it from the stream. I'm sorry about that. We're still learning how this works. Go ahead.
Okay. Like I was saying, I really think society has become desensitized to what's going on with Black women. I feel like since there has been, I wouldn't even say there has been an influx of Black women being disrespected. Black women have had a history of being disrespected by society. And that's something that it can be disheartening in a way, especially for my counterparts as being young African-American women in academia. It's something that makes us feel as though we're not being seen, we're not being heard. And just the violence in general against Black women specifically, it's something that society neglects to address. It's something that people who are in a position of authority neglect to address in a way that benefits us. But instead, some of the legislation, some of the reports, they are set out to demonize Black women and set out to present us as a bad person or bad people just because of the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we carry ourselves. It's the way we present ourselves is innovative, and innovation can scare people. So in a way, I feel like rape culture and the violence against Black women, it's sad, but like Zaria was saying, it can't change overnight. It's something that we have to work on. It's something that we as a community in the African American diaspora have to address internally.
We got roughly 5 minutes. How do we bring solutions to the challenge? How do we fix this?
As far as this challenge, I feel like it's not our job to fix it. Like, we have been screaming it for years. We should be respected. We should be held as the same sort of respect or equality as you guys, or even just speaking to all men or Black men. And they are the ones who push back, not us. We live life just regularly. You guys have a problem with it. Sorry, not to all men, but you're the one who have a problem with it, not us. So it's us who have to make the change. What are we changing? Why are we changing? We keep screaming that we shouldn't change. If we don't have a problem, you guys do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes.
Chuck really wants to come into the conversation. I'm not sure if you see him backstage.
I see him backstage, and he has been like, okay, Chuck, I'm going to give you, Chuck, you got a few seconds. Go ahead.
You only give me a few seconds, man.
Chuck.
But no, I just wanted to speak on the issue of not issue, but the topic. I feel that it's more of a social construct, and it's really a double standard because it really ties everything together that we've been talking about with the toxic masculinity and performative femininity as well. Because when you look at performative femininity, it's the unrealistic social constructed ideas and standards that's often created by media placed on women of how they should portray themselves. And then you think of what Zaria and all the other women were saying in this panel about how they dress a certain way and get treated a certain way, I think that's just mainly a social construct of how society has it. If we see women, we already look at them because of our masculinity as the second part after us as men, not me, but as men, in a general sense. But already having that, and then seeing how they dress, and then determining from just a social standpoint that that's conceived as not being, respected themselves, that they also don't get respect from us as far as when they're just trying to represent themselves. Because you think about it, if a woman wears something that's showing her body part, she's just trying to represent herself. She's trying to look good for herself. That's all. But we look at it as if, oh no, she's showing too much shit. But if I'm a man and I wear a tank top, I wear some shorts that may, be fitted, I'm trying to appeal to women to look at me, in the same sense. So it's just a double standard, I think, that is really wrong, and that has been socially constructed since time being. And it's just something that has to be, like Zari said, it has to be changed from a men's standpoint. So, yeah.
Okay, Chuck, we appreciate your chiming in on that. Thank you. I want to thank all of you who are joining us in the studio, and I want to thank all of you who watch this at home. We appreciate you watching. We love having you on the show. It is a great opportunity. We had 13 people join us today. That's a record for us. So we should be happy for our followers. If you have any questions you'd like to ask us regarding the show or the content, drop us a line at soulfood2go and soulfood2go at gmail.com. Thank you. And we will make sure that we address your concerns, questions, and so forth. Until then, we want to thank you all for joining us. Do yourself a favor. Go out and vote. We look forward to seeing you all in the next week. Take care. Be well. Thanks. It's in the broadcast.